Welcome back to the Deep Dive. It is February 14th, 2026. Today, we are not looking at the ticker tape of breaking news. We are doing something a little different.
We're turning the clock back.
We are just under a year to May 2025. We're looking at a single week that I think it's fair to say quietly rewrote the entire operating system of warfare in South Asia. We are talking about Operation Sindoor.
It's a date that, historians are going to circle in red ink.
Yeah.
May 7th to May 10th, 2025.
And usually when we talk about historic military events, we think of massive troop movements, tank battles, dogfights in the sky, all that cinematic stuff.
You have the big loud set pieces.
Exactly. But if you look at the stack of sources we've pulled for this, intelligence reports from Vision IAS, tactical breakdowns from ANI News and the Hindustan Times, and then some really dense academic theory from the Tiger Journal.
And the International Journal of Political Science and Governance.
Right. You realize this was different. This wasn't a loud war. It was a quiet one.
It was the region's first true drone-centric conflict. And that distinction, it matters immensely.
Why so much?
Because we aren't just talking about a new gadget being used on the battlefield. We're talking about a fundamental shift in the psychology of how states decide to, pull the trigger.
And that is the mission for this deep dive. We want to move past the headlines of India strikes terror camps and really understand the mechanics. We need to unpack terms like loitering munitions, understand why Bengaluru is suddenly the center of this whole thing, and grapple with this, frankly, kind of terrifying concept called algorithmic deterrence.
It connects the geography of innovation, Bengaluru, with the geography of conflict, the line of control. And honestly, if you read the implications in these reports, it scares me a little.
Well, that's comforting. But before we get to the scary future, let's start with the facts on the ground. Take us back to last May. What exactly happened during Operation Sindoor?
Okay, so to understand the operation, you have to look at the provocation. It started with the Pahalgam terror attack. That was the spark.
Right.
But the response between May 7th and May 10th it was unlike anything we'd seen since Balakot in 2019. The Indian Armed Forces launched a series of simultaneous precision strikes on 9 terror camps.
And when we say camps, we aren't talking about, a tent in the woods right on the border, are we?
No, not at all. According to the ANI reports, these were high-value training centers linked to Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar-e-Taiba.
Okay.
And crucially, the target list included locations deep inside Pakistani territory. We're talking Bahawalpur, Muridke, Sarjol, Mamunajoya.
Bahawalpur, that's a major hub.
It's the headquarters of GEM. These are not border towns. Sending anything that deep is usually a massive, massive gamble.
Right, because traditionally, to hit Bahawalpur, you have to send a fighter jet. You put a pilot in a cockpit, fly them into hostile airspace. You risk a shoot-down.
A prisoner of war situation.
The political stakes are just sky high. But this time, no pilots cross the border.
Exactly. This was the debut of the silent killers. The headlines were dominated by a specific piece of hardware. The Sky Strikers.
Okay, let's double-click on that. What is a Sky Striker? Is it just a drone that, drops a bomb?
No, and that's a really common misconception. A Sky Striker is what we call a loitering munition.
A loitering munition.
Think of it as a hybrid. It's part surveillance drone, part cruise missile. It launches, flies to a target area, and then, just like the name suggests, it loiters. It circles. It waits.
So it's a predator just waiting for prey to break cover.
Precisely. And the engineering here is specific. It uses electric propulsion.
Why is electric propulsion a tactical factor? I assume they aren't trying to save on gas money.
No, it's about acoustics. A jet engine screams. You can hear it coming miles away. A helicopter, it chops the air. You feel it before you see it. But an electric Sky Striker, it has a minimal acoustic footprint. Almost silent. It flies low, navigates autonomously, and when it spots the target, it dies. It becomes the missile.
A kamikaze unit.
That's the idea. And these units, built by a joint venture between Bengaluru's Alpha Design Technologies and Israel's Elbit Systems, carried 5 to 10 kilogram warheads right into those camps.
So you have a silent assassin that doesn't put a pilot at risk. But here is where I get skeptical. You can't just fly a slow electric drone into hostile airspace. Pakistan has a robust air defense network. Why didn't they just shoot them down?
That is the million-dollar question. And the answer lies in the air defense duel that happened at the same time. You don't just send the killers, you send the blinds. Enter the Harpy drone.
The Harpy sounds mythological.
It fits. The Harpy is designed for one mission profile, CAD, Suppression of enemy air defenses. It carries an anti-radiation seeker.
Anti-radiation here doesn't mean nuclear radiation, right? We're talking about something else.
No, it means radar emissions. Here's the trap. If the enemy keeps their radar off, they can't see the incoming sky strikers.
But they're blind.
Exactly. But if they turn their radar on to track the threat, the Harpy detects that signal, it locks onto the source, and it dives right into the radar dish.
Wow, so it's a classic catch-22. If you don't defend yourself, you get hit. If you try to defend yourself, you reveal your position and get hit.
You got it. The ANI report actually confirmed that an air defense system near Lahore was neutralized specifically by this method. It blinded the defensive grid and opened a corridor for the strike package.
Okay, so the Indian offense was high-tech and effective. But Pakistan didn't just sit on its hands. We know there was a counterstrike on the night of May 7th.
There was. They attempted to engage targets across northern and western India, Wantapura, Srinagar, down to Bathinda and Bhuj.
A pretty wide area.
Wide area, with a mix of their own drones and missiles.
Yeah.
But the damage was remarkably contained.
Because of the Sudarshan Chakra?
The S-400 system, yes, but also the integrated counter-UAS grid. This is the other side of the coin. Offensive drones are cheap. Defensive systems are expensive but necessary.
And the Indian grid held.
It neutralized the incoming swarm. So the takeaway from the military phase wasn't just India won. It was a demonstration of a technological gap in that specific window of time.
Which brings us to the second part of our mission today. This wasn't just a military victory. It seems to be framed in the reports as an industrial, a coming-of-age party. The Bengaluru connection.
That's a massive shift.
Yeah.
The Tiger Journal analysis highlights this beautifully. For decades, the narrative was, India has a problem. India calls Russia or Israel or France. India buys a solution.
Right, we're the customer.
But Operation Sindoor was different.
We mentioned Alpha Design Technologies, but the sources also talk about other players, specifically the Nagastra systems.
Yes, the Nagastra 1 and Nagastra 1R. These systems were developed by Economic Explosives Limited and Z-Motion Autonomous Systems. These are indigenous. And the Nagastra 1 is particularly interesting because it's man-portable.
Define that for us. Are we talking about something you need a truck for, or...?
No, we're talking about a backpack. A single soldier special forces or regular infantry can carry this into the field.
That changes everything.
It changes the tactical reality completely. You don't need to radio headquarters and wait 30 minutes for an airstrike from a jet that might be busy elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
You pull the drone out, launch it by hand, and you have precision air support instantly.
That decentralizes the firepower in a pretty radical way.
It pushes the decision-making right to the very edge of the battlefield. And the 1R variant is even more interesting. The R stands for reusable.
Reusable? I thought these were suicide drones. How do you reuse a suicide drone? Doesn't it,
Blow up? It blows up if it finds a target. But think about the inefficiency of old wars. If a missile doesn't find a target, it's wasted. It just crashes or self-destructs.
Very expensive firework.
The Nagastra 1R has a parachute recovery mechanism. If the mission is aborted or no target is found, it comes back. You refuel it, recharge it, and send it out again.
That brings the cost down significantly.
Drastically. And that cost factor is crucial. It's the whole doctrine of cheap war. But before we get to the doctrine, we have to talk about the evolution. The Nagastra is tactical. But there was one more system mentioned that sounded straight out of a sci-fi horror movie, the FWD LM-AO1.
Right. Unveiled at the Paris Air Show, June 2025. Manufactured by Flying Wedge Defense and Aerospace, also out of Bengaluru.
This is a step up, a big one. It has a 100-kilometer range, but the spec sheet lists AI-driven target recognition.
That is the phrase that makes me nervous. AI-driven target recognition. Does that mean the machine decides what to kill?
It means the machine can identify and classify potential targets without a human staring at a screen every second. It can distinguish a tank from a truck or a soldier from a civilian, theoretically. The Tiger report notes that this signals India's entry into a very exclusive club of nations that field these long-range AI-enabled systems.
And it also opens Pandora's box, doesn't it, about export ambitions. India isn't just using these, they want to sell them. Okay, let's open that box. We've covered the what? The Sky Strikers, the Nagastras, the FWDs. Now I want to understand the so what. The Tiger source talks about algorithmic deterrence. That sounds like a buzzword a consultant made up. Break it down for us. What does it actually mean?
It is dense, I'll admit.
Yeah.
But think of it this way. Traditional deterrence is based on fear of massive retaliation. If you hit me, I will flatten your city. It's slow, it's heavy, and it's political. Algorithmic deterrence is based on the kill chain being automated in near instant.
The kill chain being the time it takes to spot an enemy and shoot them.
Correct. The Tiger paper mentions that since 2022, the Indian Army has deployed over 140 AI-based surveillance systems along the line of control. These are not just cameras. They fuse data from satellites, radar, drones.
So the algorithm sees you before a human does?
Yes. And because you have loitering munitions like the Nagastra already in the air or ready to launch, the response time is cut from minutes to seconds. It creates a panopticon effect.
A panopticon.
It's a concept from philosophy. A prison, where the prisoner feels like they are being watched 24/7, even if they aren't. If you are a terrorist trying to infiltrate the border, you have to assume an AI is watching you and a silent drone is already hunting you. That fear, that certainty of detection, is the deterrence.
It's not about the size of the bomb, it's about the certainty that it's coming.
Exactly.
But there's a flip side to this efficiency, isn't there? You mentioned the drone doctrine earlier. If war becomes cheap and if we don't risk our own soldiers,
then we might go to war more often.
Yeah.
That is the central paradox.
Explain that.
Look, launching a traditional air raid with a manned fighter jet costs millions of dollars. If a pilot is shot down and captured, like we saw in 2019, it becomes a massive national crisis.
The prime minister has to get involved. The stakes are huge.
That high cost makes leaders hesitate. It's a kind of friction against war.
But with a drone,
If you lose a Nagastra drone, it costs a fraction of the price. There are no letters to write to grieving families, no political crisis, no hostage negotiations.
so the threshold for using force just drops.
Drastically. Political leaders might be tempted to approve these surgical strikes as a routine tool of statecraft. Instead of sending a diplomat, you send a drone. It lowers the barrier to entry for violence.
That sounds dangerous. It sounds like we could end up in a state of forever war, just low-level buzzing and exploding all the time.
And that leads to the security dilemma that the academic sources mentioned.
Yeah.
It's not just about low-level war. It's about the risk of accidental big war.
How does a small drone start a big war?
Well, the Tiger paper highlights the risk of automation bias and misinterpretation. So imagine this scenario. India launches a swarm of loitering munitions at a terror camp. But that camp is located near a Pakistani airbase.
Okay.
The Pakistani radar operator sees a swarm of incoming aerial vehicles. He doesn't know there are small conventional drones carrying 5-kilogram warheads.
He just sees a lot of dots on a screen.
A lot of dots, moving fast. In the heat of the moment, with seconds to decide, he might misinterpret that swarm as the first wave of a massive invasion. Or worse, a prelude to a nuclear strike aimed at blinding his defenses.
Like if he thinks it's an invasion,
He escalates. He launches missiles, he scrambles jets, and suddenly a safe surgical drone strike has triggered a full-scale conventional war.
or in the worst-case scenario in South Asia, a nuclear standoff.
That is the nightmare. The technology that is supposed to make us safer, because it's so precise, could actually trigger the apocalypse because it's confusing.
Clarity is the first casualty of speed.
It is. When you automate the kill chain, you remove the time for those phone calls between leaders to de-escalate.
There's one other group of people we haven't talked about. We talk about generals and radars, but reading the Vision IAS notes, there's a section on everyday militarization. What does this tech do to the people actually living on the border?
This is such a profound point. The academic sources like Holmquist and Suchman talk about this. If you live in a border village, war used to be an event. It happened and then it stopped. But with algorithmic deterrence, war is an atmosphere.
An atmosphere, what do you mean?
You are under continuous algorithmic scrutiny. You know that 2847 and AI is scanning your movement. A silent drone might be hovering 5,000 feet above your farm. You can't see it, but you know it's there.
That has to change the fundamental experience of life.
It creates a psychological pressure cooker for the entire civilian population.
And it's not just the border, is it? The Vision IAS notes draw a pretty scary line back to internal security.
Right. Technology never stays in one place. The same lightweight man-portable drones like the Nagastra that are used to hunt terrorists in Kashmir, well, they're perfectly suited for the dense jungles of Chhattisgarh or Jharkhand.
Fighting Naxalism.
Exactly, left-wing extremism, or LWE. The state can use these tools to hunt insurgents with incredible precision. But here's the catch. This tech is democratizing.
Meaning the bad guys can get it too?
Exactly. Commercial drones are cheap. Retrofitting them with explosives is easy. We're looking at a future where insurgents, or violent internal security threats, as the notes call them, could use swarm tactics against police stations or government convoys.
The asymmetry is disappearing.
The state loses its monopoly on air power.
It feels like we've gone from a celebration of Indian innovation, hey, we built this, to a very sobering realization of what we've built.
I think that's a responsible way to look at it.
Yeah.
Operation Sindoor was, by all accounts, a tactical masterpiece. It proved the tech works. It proved India can be a builder, not just a buyer. It showed Bengaluru can compete with Tel Aviv or Washington. But it also opened the door to a new era where war is faster, cheaper, and potentially much, much harder to control.
Faster, cheaper, and harder to control. That sounds like the tagline for the 21st century.
Unfortunately, yes. And we have to ask ourselves if our diplomacy can keep up with our technology. Right now, the tech is winning that race.
So if you had to leave the listener with one thought, one thing to chew on after they take their headphones off, what would it be?
I'd go back to the conclusion of that Tidra research. We are moving toward fully autonomous systems like the FWD LM-01. Systems that can find, identify, and engage targets entirely on their own.
The robot pulling the trigger.
Right. And we often think human emotion is a weakness in war. We think fear makes it inefficient. But I want the listener to ask, is that fear actually a safety mechanism? That split second of human hesitation, that fear of consequences, that moral doubt, that is often the only thing that prevents a limited skirmish from spiraling into total destruction. If we outsource the decision of death to an algorithm that feels no fear and has no doubt, are we making war more efficient, or are we just removing the brakes?
That is a heavy thought. Are we removing the brakes? A massive thank you to our listener for joining us on this deep dive into Operation Sindoor. We hope you feel a little smarter and maybe a little more cautious about the future of conflict.
Thanks for having me.
We will catch you on the next deep dive. Stay curious.